So we have a lot of these campaigns going on. We work a lot with Student Switch Off or SOS UK, I think, and US. They've rebranded a bit as well. Eco Brunel is an initiative we started this year. It's just making some short little video clips to just inform students about certain topics. One of my favorite ones is one we uploaded recently. It was the hedgehog one, talking about how our campus is hedgehog friendly and some ways campus and the university have gone forwards to make it so it's a reality. So hedgehogs are protected species, and campus does go out of its way to actually protect them. And the editing on that video was really good, and it's one of the better ones we've put out for that initiative. But it is very important for sure to talk about it.
Hello everyone, hope you're doing well, hope you're looking after yourselves, hope you are enjoying the weather. We're currently in the month of May, and in typical UK weather fashion, you got the warm, sunny day for like an hour and then rain the next, and just switching between the two for the whole day. So yeah, it's been really great trying to plan an outfit to go out in, but we live, we move, and we continue. And yeah, we've got another episode to pick up the mic today, and we're excited because we've it's some other Brunel special one, but also, as we always say, this can relate to any student, and essentially the title for today's episode is Home Away from Home, and we've got an amazing guest speaker with us today. As I always say, I don't want to bore you with their introductions from you don't want to hear it from me. You've heard me speak too many times, but I'm rather going to pass over to our amazing guest speaker to introduce themselves. So guest speaker, go ahead.
Go ahead. Hi, everyone. My name is Jay. I'm one of your Lead ResLife Ambassadors this year. I've been doing so many projects so far during my time here at university. I manage societies, and I even have my own podcast now as well. This big university-wide well-being podcast.
Oh wow, that's awesome! And yeah, you're I think you're officially our second podcaster, so it's always great to have a fellow podcaster. Yeah, it's always great to have a fellow podcaster on the podcast. And yeah, no, thank you for that. I guess before we officially dive in, I do want to say I have seen some of the work that you guys, you ResLife Ambassadors have done, especially during COVID and lockdown, and most people, being in their rooms. Yeah, you really did a great job to encourage students, whether that was on campus or even off campus, to essentially show, we can all still connect, even if we're living in a more online world. But yeah, we're going to go on to the first official question for today's episode. And essentially, I think you sort of touched on it there, Jay, but essentially, what are Brunel's ResLife, ambassadors?
We've rebranded, or ResLife now.
Well, essentially, what are you guys?
What are we? What am I? So the Brunel ResLife Ambassador team, we're just a group of students hired by Student Living, or residences. It used to be residences, is now just the one big thing, Student Living. And we're here to support students when it comes to like well-being. We're trained with mental health support, and we're just here to engage with students. Basically, we are professional friends almost here at university.
Wow, that's really great. And I think genuinely, and we'll talk about it later about living on campus. I know from a lot of friends who lived on campus that they, some of them are saying that, they never knew they had ambassadors that, would come in and check on them and make sure they were doing okay, and, be able to answer any questions and things like that. So it's great to know that, Brunel has got a team like that. And I'm sure, as I mentioned at the start, even though we'll probably mention Brunel a lot this episode, there's probably something similar, if not the exact same, at your own university. So make sure that you check and see if you can use some of these services too. But yeah, going on to the next question, essentially, why did you decide to become an ambassador then, Jay? Was this always the dream when you came to university?
Lifelong dream.
Yeah, it was a lifelong dream. or was this more of a, you saw an opportunity and thought, why not take it?
So let's see. So with this whole like ResLife initiative, coming back to what you said earlier, a lot of people sometimes do not see us. So Brunel has 14,000 students, only 4,000 of those actually live on campus. So probably those 4,000 are the ones who would mostly see us around. We usually visit halls once or twice a week. And I know it's sometimes mainly focused on freshers halls. So that's why sometimes most of the students haven't seen us, because especially with COVID last year, returning students coming into second year, they're not as much of sometimes they're in halls we don't visit as much, so that's why they don't sometimes see us. So how did this all start? It started when I was a fresher. Ultimately, I moved in. I had a really nice flat, and we had our ResLife ambassadors come in twice a week to just talk to us, chat with us, making sure everything was all right. And it seemed like a really cool job. Just being able to just go around and just talk to students and engage with students, just being almost there for them. And it just seemed like such an interesting job. I then during that year, I was so inspired. I did volunteering with student switch off. It's a campaign we have here, not here at university. It's in the UK, which is to do with sustainability, with electricity savings and water savings. So I did volunteering for them. And the year after, I became a regular ResLife ambassador. And I know we worked, Jeffrey, last year. I was actually on the other end of this. I was the one interviewing you last year, you and the environmental society. So that was really cool. And we were able to engage with students last year. So that was really fun. So that's a bit of why I decided to come to this job. I really enjoy being social and hanging out with just students and being able to like just talk to them, and being able to do that for a job is just the dream here at university.
No, that's so true. And I think I definitely, being social is such a great thing. We always talk about it on the podcast, especially like during COVID. Losing that was definitely such a huge impact. And it's great to see the amazing work that, yourself and the other ResLife ambassadors do. Speaking, I mean, it's not one of our official questions that we're asking, but it's great that you did mention sustainability, because I know from following your page, you guys put up, I think it's almost at least once a week, you have a Eco Brunel tip that you share about sustainability. Could we learn a bit more about that?
You can learn a bit more about that. So we have a lot of these campaigns going on. We work a lot with student switch off, or SOS UK, I think, and US. They've rebranded a bit as well. Eco Brunel is an initiative we started this year. It's just making some short little video clips to just inform students about certain topics. One of my favorite ones is one we uploaded recently. It was the hedgehog one, talking about how our campus is hedgehog friendly, and some ways campus and the university have gone forwards to make it so it's a reality. So hedgehogs are a protected species, and campus does go out of its way to actually protect them. And the editing on that video was really good, and it's one of the better ones we've put out for that initiative. But it is very important for sure to talk about it.
Definitely. And I think that's great, because I think, especially from friends that lived on campus, they were saying, even if they were, really sustainable themselves and they would recycle and do things, they might try and explain it to their mates in halls, but they wouldn't get it. They'd just be like, oh, I don't really need to be sustainable, or, oh, I don't get why, you're always recycling stuff or sorting out the recycling. It doesn't make sense. So it's great to see that you guys are posting like all these really interesting tips and tricks and all of this stuff that helps people know, I guess, why it's important to be sustainable. And I guess also sort of linking to that, it's really great to see some of the recommendations that you guys also post about, whether it's books or films or TV shows. Because I think that's another thing that, especially probably during lockdown, but I'm sure everyone listening can probably relate to. There's been a lot more like online, watching stuff online, and it's really interesting to see some of the recommendations you guys give. And I'm sure there are students that probably could say that they've either watched stuff or they've checked stuff out through your recommendations. So I think that's really cool.
I'd really like to think some of them have definitely checked out some of our recommendations, because we have some really good shows and books being recommended there. And it does show that we are human as well. We are people. We have our interests. So we're not just here to preach to you about sustainability. We do some more stuff. Coming back to the sustainability though, one thing that university does try to do as well is just a lot of recycling going on. One thing that just came to my head, which a lot of students don't seem to know, stuff like used up pizza boxes and coffee cups, they're not recyclable because they're tainted with oils and other products, and that can just completely taint all the other trash in the recyclable. So by putting something like that in one of those bins, it ruins everything, and none of that material can be recycled. So that's just something I wanted to put forward because it's very important and most people don't know about it.
No, I had no idea about that myself. Literally, when you were saying it, I was just like, wow, I had no idea about that. And I think that's so true, because it's one of those things where I think the typical material thing of you see something that's cardboard, you always assume as long as it's cardboard, it can be recycled, or as long as it's a certain type of plastic, it can always be recycled. And it's actually not that clear, and it's not actually true. And I know, especially recently, like as a family, we've just been learning. Well, we knew a bit about the recycling symbols before, but we've been checking them a lot more because there's all, like, literally I can add a picture later on and show it, but there's like all these different recycling symbols, and some of them mean that yes, the material is recyclable. Sometimes it just means that the company that's in charge of it just donates to a fund, so the actual material itself isn't recyclable, but the company's just doing works. So literally it's one of those things where I think that, like I was saying, it's really great that you guys to share these tips, because even for students who don't live on campus, these tips are really important, and I definitely would recommend that even if you're not your student living on campus at Brunel, even if you've graduated, whatever, just following the page can be really good to still get these tips, still learn new things, and I think it's, like I said, it's really great to see all the amazing stuff that you guys do. So thank you very much. And I guess just one thing I wanted to say before we go into the next question was literally like what you were saying before about the recommendations. I think it's really great, because I think sometimes at the university, we might see certain people who are ambassadors or have certain positions, and you might think, they're sort of like staff members, or especially if you don't know much about the position, you might think, they actually are staff members. But I think it's great because you guys, show that you're still students, you're still going through, I guess, you guys have your binge watchings. You guys have, like I said, it's these great campaigns, the Wellbeing Wednesdays, sharing all these like really good tips, especially like I said, during exam season, which is currently on at the moment. I know that there's a few students of friends of mine who are living on campus, and they've, checked out your page because of these recommendations on stuff. So yeah, I think like I said, I could probably go on for days talking about it, but I think it's honestly really great all the work that you guys do, and it really is great. But yeah, I guess going on to the next question, Jay, I want to ask you, and I guess being a ResLife ambassador, the answer to this is probably yes. But I guess essentially, have you lived on campus before was the question, and then I guess if you have lived on campus, the answer, the next question was going to be essentially, how did you find like the first time you were living on campus? What was that like for you?
So that's an interesting question. So I did live on campus. I did live on campus in first year, and I do live on campus now in my third year. And the year in between, I was kind of off campus, kind of at home as well because of the whole COVID situation. How did I find it? That's actually very interesting. So I am from Portugal, not from here in the UK. So I've traveled abroad here to study. So I didn't have any family. I didn't have anything. So that first few weeks, it was definitely very interesting. So I have had the great opportunity during my life to have been able to live abroad in different countries. So I was able to adapt much better. So I do have that adaptability skill. And I think when coming here to UK, I was very excited about everything. So it wasn't too bad, I feel. And I know one of the first things I did was I went to a lot of the events that were happening at Freshers Fair, a lot of the events the union were hosting. I got to meet a lot of people through societies, through these events. There was group chats that were set up back in my year of the whole building. You got to meet everyone effectively a month or two before I actually moved in. So by that point, everyone already kind of knew each other, especially the flag group chat. So it was really, really cool. I actually talk more about this and tips about transitioning from abroad, and not a cool podcast I mentioned. It was our first episode. It was transitioning from abroad to university. So I won't go too much into it here, but it is something you can definitely check out there as well.
Oh, thank you. And we'll make sure to include a link to that in the description, because I'm sure our listeners are eager to know about that. But I think it is great to hear that, you did come abroad and you study here. And I think that's one of the things that especially sometimes as home students, I think especially during your undergrad, maybe less so in masters, you tend to always assume that, either you're all the same age in your undergrad, or you're all home students, or most of you are home students. And it's great to see, like I said, the diversity that comes, not only Brunel, but at other universities as well. And I think, like you said, it is really great to hear that you had like a really great experience, because linking to everyone's favorite segment, mic check, putting our opinions, facts, figures, things like that. I think it's great to highlight here that, through friends and other people that I know that have lived on campus, it is a great experience. Now myself, and I know we'll talk about this later, I have not lived on campus, but I think, like you said, Jay, it's that, like, one, it's that gets you in that independent mindset, because you know that essentially you've got to pay your rent, you've also got to buy food, buy groceries, buy everything that you'd need to basically live on campus for however long you're going to be on campus. And it sort of transitions you from thinking that, yes, I've got my parents to always rely on, to more of a, I'm at an independent stage in my life, which I think, can be a good thing. It can be good to have a reality check sometimes and realize that actually, I need to learn how to budget, or I need to learn how to, ensure that whatever I'm spending is within my price range, or how can I make sure that I'm, if it's a night out, I don't need to go crazy and buy loads of food and drink. So I think that's really great. And I guess with the mic check segment of, I've had friends say that living on campus can be an amazing experience. Obviously, it differs for each person. But I think one thing that they've said collectively is that it's just, the experience is something that you only will understand if you do it, is the first thing. But also, some of these connections that they've said that you make, some of these people are still friends with their flatmates that they were living with since first year. Some of these people are like best friends. Like, it's amazing the things that can happen from living on campus. So yeah, definitely would recommend to anyone who's not living on campus and is thinking about it, for any students who are listening, who are applying for university at the moment and want to know more about, I guess, living on campus. Definitely well, you've heard it from here first. It might be something you think about. But yeah, we now come to the last official question, Jay. And essentially, this might be something very relevant to you and the work that ResLife Ambassadors do. And you probably know more about this than our listeners, or even myself. Is, what concerns do students have when living on campus?
So that's a very interesting question. And I think that ties a bit with what you were just saying as well. One of the things with living on campus, especially as a first year, is you kind of get thrown into you just get thrown into the chaos of it, and no one knows what to do effectively at times. Almost all freshers, they're very new at living alone, living by themselves, having that independence. So sometimes not knowing when to budget, what to buy, just how to even cook, how to do the laundry. It's all very like things that sometimes you take for granted while you're at home. And it really is a reality check when you move into university. It's just such a shock sometimes. Biggest issues I feel like students face is sometimes the adaptability. I know of a lot of students who most times don't really spend much time at university. Whilst they are living on campus, they often just stay most of their time at home because they miss the comfort from home. But it is something that university, like the university experience, especially of living on campus and in first year, it's something that it's so much. It's so exciting. It's such an experience that I do really recommend for most people, especially just for their first year, if anyone can. And it is most of that stuff. It's issues with making friends, because sometimes you might know one or two people that might have come into university as well with you, but sometimes you're just thrown into it. You know no one, and it's dealing with that loneliness, making new friends, making new acquaintances. But at the end of the day, especially if you're living on campus, you're all in the same boat. So it is very easy to like just make friends with people because everyone's facing the same struggles as you. And we have an amazing team here at residences and student services as well, student well-being here just to support you. And you can just come to us with any of these issues and we can ultimately just help you, advise you, signpost you to anyone that needs. and just be there for you ultimately. And I know we have a really good union here at Brunel as well. They enable so many societies to be able to be up and running. And I'm sure there's something out there for you. So if you are facing some loneliness or you want to make friends, that is definitely one of my biggest recommendations, is to check out what societies or clubs out there. I run a few societies. I'm in other societies, and I do some sports as well. I do a bit of everything. I keep myself active. I keep myself occupied, and I get to meet so many different people through this, which is ultimately great.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing about the university experience is it's kind of like you said, making the most of it, because essentially at the end of the day, it's whether it's you're doing like a 3-year course or a 4-year course, or you're doing a foundation year, whatever you're doing, essentially you're going to be at university for a long period of time. And it's about making sure that when you come out of it, you're just like, wow, this has been a really great time. I think someone, I don't know who said it, but someone was saying that like the going to uni age, or typical uni age of 18 to like 21, 22, that's the moment in your life where, obviously I'm not encouraging people, and I don't want our audience to think that I'm saying, yes, you can go out and just make as many mistakes as you want. But essentially this is the time when, you can make mistakes, and ultimately it will most likely just impact you. There won't be hopefully, fingers crossed, too serious implications, but this is the time when you can learn about your interests and figure out, like you were saying with societies, of what societies are you interested in? Could your societies linked with what you want to do after university? You don't necessarily have to join a society that links to your degree. You could be a computer scientist, but you want to join the gaming society because you're really interested in gaming and gaming design, or you might be a huge Marvel or DC fan. You want to join the fantasy and the comic book society, and there's a whole like you said, Jay. There's a whole host of societies at Brunel that students can join, and they usually, I know COVID has thrown a spanner in the works for a lot of people, but there's usually at least one event a week that you can go that one society is doing, and I think the great thing is that none of the societies are ever just like you can't be a part of us. Like you paid the membership, you can't come to our event, or even if you haven't paid the membership and you just want to see what it's like, you can't come to our event. It's usually always welcoming, always saying oh, hey, if you're around, do you want to come see what we're doing today or this? And yeah, there's so many that students can join and students can take part in. But yeah, I definitely would recommend that anyone who is living on campus or coming to campus, definitely utilize that, because that is such a great thing and so important. So yeah.
It really is. And one thing, tying back to what you said, being here at university, it really gives you that like time and freedom to just like discover yourself, like find your identity, just who you really are, by discovering hobbies, maybe like trying things you never tried. Like it really helps you like make your own character ultimately at the end. And it's something that you don't get to do sometimes at home. Maybe at home there's not that much privacy. Like you have your parents, you have people, you don't really get to like discover yourself ultimately. Try new interests, try all these things. University gives you so many of these options and opportunities to try so many things, from professional careers and opportunities to like these more social ones, even just like ultimately just finding out who you are. It's definitely one of the most key moments in most people's lives. It's where they really discover who they are, is the time of university. So it's definitely one of the best years I feel like most people will have, is their time at university.
No, that's so true. And I think, linking to what you were saying about cooking, I think every uni student at this point probably knows how to cook a bit of pasta with some bolognese sauce. So like you were saying, everyone's got that shared experience, and it is a great opportunity for you to develop yourself, and I guess really think about, once whether you've gone into a PhD or a master's or whatever, essentially you can think about what are you going to do afterwards, and it gives you that time to really just think about the decision of, yes, you might have like exams and stuff, but throughout your time at university, you're able to learn like, post university, this is actually what I want to do, or this is actually what I don't want to do, which is something, ultimately you can never get if you don't go to university. But yeah, no, thank you so much, Jay, for all your wonderful answers. And we're now going to go on to our next segment, which is passing the mic. So officially, I'm going to pass the mic over to Jay. just like we did for the environmental science one, where I was getting interviewed. We're having literally the same thing now. So Jay's going to ask me a question or some questions that he's prepared for me. So yeah, over to you.
Wow, I almost missed this. The environmental sciences podcast last year was probably one of the best ones I did. I was really happy with it. The conversation was flowing so well, and you gave me such great answers last year. So let's see if your answers might have changed since. So how was your time here at university? How did you enjoy your time here? This would be my first question.
No, that's all right. So I guess for my undergrad, yeah, it was definitely a great experience. So I did 2 years of academic studies and then a placement and then my final year. And it was, yeah, really good. I think one of the things that I liked was because so the year that I joined my course was the first year that the course was done at Brunel University. So it was really nice because there wasn't, I mean, I was going into uni for my first year thinking that I'm going to be in a massive lecture hall. Like what you were saying, you know, I was thinking, oh gosh, I probably won't know that. Like, I didn't know anyone who was doing my course. I was just like, I don't know anyone. I'm just going to go in. It's going to be a massive hall. So I was just like, I'm going to sit at the back, do all this, do all that. And then got to campus. And then we were in one of the small rooms, and anyone on campus knows the lecture center. We were in the small rooms in the lecture center, and there was like 20 people. And I was thinking, okay, you know, maybe this is like, oh, like one, they're doing it like in bits. So they've just divided up the class because they couldn't get a full classroom. And then literally, as soon as we got in, everyone's sitting down, the lecturer just like, hi guys, thank you all for coming. Welcome, you know, you're our new class. And I was just like, wow, you know, expecting a class of 300, only having like 20 of us is definitely a different experience. But I think it was great because we all got to know each other very well. It was a lot more personal and a lot more fun. Like we did as a course, went out and did events together. Between all of us, we're doing events together, which was really fun. And then we also had like trips throughout the first 2 years, which was really good. So we went to Dorset in our first year, and then the second year we got to go to Tenerife, which was amazing, and it was really fun. And yeah, I think overall it was a really great experience. And that sort of led to, like you were saying about the Environmental Science Society, that all got formed because a couple of friends and I were just like, hey, you know, wouldn't it be great if there was an academic society for environmental science? We do a lot of cool work. There's a lot of work the students do that's really cool. Let's just have the open space so they can do stuff. And that was really fun. And yeah, I just think that it was really great. I think, like what you said, for my final year, I wouldn't say there was a year that was really bad, but I think, like you said, because of COVID, I wasn't part of any societies. I didn't really get to do I was on the committee for the Environmental Science Society, so I organised events through that, but I wasn't an active member of another society. And I kind of was just like, you know what, COVID's happening. I don't know whether we're in a lockdown or not. So I just like, you know, let me just do this year from home, see how things go for my masters. This year, again, I would say was really fun. Just like you were saying, that there's like so much to do on campus. And there's just like a lot of societies that you can take part in. And I think that's the great thing post-COVID that's sort of come out is, you know, you're not limited to just, you know, before where most events probably were in person. Now, if you're not on campus, you're not necessarily missing out. Some things are live streamed or hosted online, which is really fun. So I think I say it's been really great so far. And then I'm hoping for my next year of my masters, I'll be able to, depending on where my placement is, do a bit more on campus, probably be more involved this year. And yeah, fingers crossed that, as I know, you probably know Jay, and our listeners probably do from Brunel as well, about the Brunel Plus Award, probably get that out the way, because I guess for anyone who's not doesn't know, or, you know, isn't from Brunel, the Brunel Plus Award is essentially an award that's given in addition to your degree that essentially showcases the work you've done throughout your time at university. And I think the thing that kind of annoyed me was I didn't know about it until my final year. So I didn't know much about it. And then I think I got an email about it and was just like, oh, you know, I can add stuff. And it was kind of like, you know, if I'd started in first year, I probably could have got it done before, got the gold by the time I left. But it was kind of just because you didn't hear about it. So yeah, I'm hoping that next year I'll be able to get gold and say I got all of 3 of those. So the university experience all in all has been really great.
That's good to hear. And Brunel Plus is very good. It shows up in your academic transcript, your here transcript when you graduate. I know when I started, I did the Ready program. So I got introduced to the Brunel Plus award right away my first year. But I didn't really do much towards it during my first and second. And now on third year, in my final year, I finished it fully. So I was able to attain gold myself. So you've been talking a lot about environmental society. Do you still remember your answer to the question I asked you about a year ago? Well, why is the environmental society the best society here, Brunel? Do you still remember that answer to that question?
That's a very good question. Best society off. I can see. Imagine we're going to get all the comments of other societies. No, I'd say it's honestly it's a really great society because I mean this year, like I said, with everything, COVID's just made it more difficult. But this year we started off with the plan of like we want to do as many events as possible. We want to try and do a lot more sustainable things. I think it's really great because, well, for environmental science students, because one of the modules that they do, as well as I think global challenges and life sciences do, is about promoting sustainability on campus. And one of the reasons why we set up the society, like I think maybe coming up to 3 years ago, was essentially we were saying that a lot of us in our first in that first cohort of the course were saying that we didn't actually know a lot of the places to get information or even to promote the campaigns we were doing. We were just like, you know, it's really tough to try and do these campaigns and we're getting assessed. So we were just like, you know, even though it's a pass fail, we were just like, we need to show that we've actually done significant work. So we were all just saying, wouldn't it be great, at least for environmental science students, if they had somewhere that you could say, you know, if you want a survey put out for you. If you want a poster shared, we can share it for you. If you want to have like a showcase where you can come in and, you know, get people from the public to see your stuff, or other students to see some of the work that you're doing, we can do that. And that was one of the reasons that we did it. But also, we kind of just felt like especially when we started, there were other environmental societies, but we just felt like there wasn't any that really, like, I guess, talked about kind of the science behind it, or like there wasn't one focused on the science behind it. And we kind of just felt that a lot of students weren't really, you know, they might know about climate change, but they didn't necessarily know like how it works and how things impact it. Or like we were saying about the recycling labels, they didn't necessarily know about that. So we were saying that wouldn't it be great if they could have somewhere that they could share this information? And yeah, it's been really great. I'd say our plan is hopefully for next year to do some more events. I know we were supposed to do a showcase of stuff, but unfortunately it was literally the week we were going to do the showcase was the week where that hurricane was happening, and we had to like rearrange it. And then eventually we were just like, yeah, the deadline had passed, so we were just like, you know what, let's just leave it. But yeah, we're hoping to do some beach cleanups in the new year. We're hoping to do another showcase. We're hoping to give our members, you know, hopefully some networking events, so they can also see some prospective, like I guess, jobs, but also know what they can do afterwards, whether they study environmental science or have a passion for it or anything like that. So yeah, so that's why I'd say we're you know, I'll argue that we're the best. Yeah. So yeah.
That's very interesting. A society with both networking and volunteering. Who would want to be part of that?
Exactly. No, it's so true. And yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been really great the last couple of years to do it. We are hoping to do more, but it's just one of those things where we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the new year. But yeah, fingers crossed. We tried to do a beach cleanup this year. Weather, COVID, all impacted, but fingers crossed next year we should be able to do a few beach cleanups as well.
I think that's honestly so important. And I do joke, because this is a question I will ask every society, just for them to get a little time to boast and show off when I did those interviews last year. But it's so interesting to see like the responses, like from this society, like it's really that passion for environmental, like, and sustainability and all that, and which shows from like those volunteering events and cleanups, which is so impressive and so admirable to see that like societies and people actually come together to actually come and do that just because they have a passion for the planet we live in. Super interesting for sure.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, the only other thing I forgot to mention was like you mentioned before. So we sort of changed how we're doing it, the podcast, the environmental science podcast, but we've essentially linked it up with this podcast so that we've merged them into sort of one, or merged the environmental science stuff into Pick Up the Mic. So we're continuing to do that. It's only been because with my masters, it's been like deadline after deadline that we haven't done any new episodes yet. But I'm happy to announce we will have new episodes coming out soon. So it's just a case of keeping an eye out. We'll have some sustainable guests from the fashion industry, looking at the creative industries and the filming industry and how they can be sustainable. So we'll have new episodes of that. So yeah, I'll give a mini shout out to that.
I'm looking forward to them, honestly. They sound really interesting.
Oh, thank you so
and
much.
For those loyal viewers, they'll get more content as well.
Exactly. So yeah, it should be good. Should be good.
One last question I do want to say. So to wrap, I mean, because it has to do with this whole theme that we're doing today as well. What's your biggest tip for anyone coming to university or living on campus? What would you say?
Good question. Biggest tip. I'd say for anyone coming, so anyone living on campus, I would say one, big tip. I'm gonna have to give, like I always say, when it comes to like give, like, what's your biggest tip or anything like that, I always can't do one. I have to do a minimum of 3 because picking one sometimes is too hard. I'd say first off, budget. Yeah, thank you. I'd say first off, budgeting is super important. Learn how to budget, because I feel like whether you're a home student and you've got money coming in from student finance, or you're you're getting money from your parents or whatever, learn how to budget, because I think students, even sometimes I was literally speaking to someone we have on the podcast, Samuel, about this a couple of weeks ago, and we were both just like, yeah, when you've got like all this money and you're not working or you're not doing anything, you have a tendency to be like, I want a new pair of headphones, or I want to buy new clothes, or I want to buy like a new webcam or a gaming console or whatever. And then you don't actually stop and think that, do I really need it? You're just like, oh yeah, I've got one, but it's not great, so I'm just going to buy one anyways. And that's how, it can be a downward spiral, and it's not good. So I think learning to budget and understanding that, you can have a certain amount of money for shopping. You can have a certain amount of money for, for upgrading stuff. You can have a certain amount of money to just spend whenever you want. I think having those piles is good. And then you can say like, for the month of June, I've saved up from last month, so I'm going to spend a bit. I can add a bit extra here and there. I think is good. And I think especially sometimes as students, when we hear the word budgeting, we sometimes like panic and then just be like, oh, I don't want to touch it. But no, I definitely think budgeting is a key one. I'd say 2, like you were saying, Jay, network and like meet new people. I think like you don't have to say like, at least every day I need to talk to a new person. But I think understanding that there are like other people outside of your course, because whether you've got a course for like 500 or 20, I think it's really good to like understand that there are other people on campus. So whether it's, you go to some events, or you go to union events, or you go to some of the ResLife events, or, any event, I think it's just making sure that you actually take the time to meet people on campus. Because like what you were saying, you might find someone with similar interests. You might find someone that, is doing something or wants to do a similar career path to you, or they're looking to start a business and you want to start a business, and it turns out you both are interested in the same thing. I think, yeah, definitely connecting with people on campus is very key. And then lastly, for anyone living on campus, I would say it's really key to find like a source of work. Now, obviously, like we said today, you could be a ResLife ambassador. There's also other ambassadors like student ambassadors, STEM ambassadors, WA ambassadors, like a whole host at Brunel. And again, the same probably is for other universities. But I think even if you find like a job off campus, like, I know Wetherspoons does a lot of employment for students, could work at a supermarket, whatever. I think that's also good, because it also gives you an extra bit of income. So that, even if you don't have student finance, or if you do, you've still got some income coming in some way, because that can always be nice to have, like an extra bit of cash. And I think especially one of my friends joked about it at Brunel. She was saying that as a student ambassador, sometimes it is nice to know that like you've worked. You generally forget that you've worked, and then you're just looking at your bank account and you're just like, oh my gosh, I got an extra like 150 quid from from all the work I did last month. I had no idea about this. You know what? I'm going to treat myself and use some of that. So yeah, I'd say for anyone living on campus, those are my 3 tips. And for anyone coming to university, whether it's like their first year, I guess if it's your first year, again, it's the same thing of just like networking, learn to budget, and try and find employment. For anyone who's like been to university and maybe who's taken a break, or has been to university, is coming back to do a master's, and this might be their first time, I guess, doing like education for some time, I would say like be prepared for like the change, especially if you're doing like going from like an undergrad to a postgraduate. Be prepared for the change, because I think the one thing that I've seen on my master's was all of us were just like, you know, whether this was people who had just like me, had just done their undergrad, went straight into their masters, or whether this was people who hadn't been in education for over 10 years and then came back and did a master's, we were all just like, it's different completely. Because while, like you were saying, Jay, about like, you know, first year you can do a lot of stuff because it doesn't count to your final grade. It's very relaxed, very chill. With your masters, it's more like third year, but like up a notch. Like they turned the dial to 9, said like, you know, we're throwing you in the deep end. And you know, I think that is good, because obviously there's no point in a master's being another 3 years, because that is super long. But I think it's key to understand that, you know, when you get there, don't assume that it will be like anything you've done before. Be prepared for multiple deadlines within a week, and they're all like big pieces of coursework. You know, be prepared that if, you know, I don't know, you're doing an online exam, that it won't be the same as what you've done in the past. So I think, yeah, going in with that anticipation of, you know, university's probably not, especially if you've been to university before, it's not going to be like what you did before. Because I think then you'll understand that actually, you know, I need to prepare and figure everything out. But yeah, I'd say those are my all my tips.
Honestly, spot on, I would say. Now you're kind of scaring me. I'm gonna do a master's next year. I'm kind of scared now.
No. Honestly, I think as long as you're just prepared, like, I think that was one of the things that threw me off was my master's. I think just it wasn't that it was like super hard. It was more just, I think that you're not ready for all those deadlines up close. And again, like what I was saying of, you know, for my undergrad, I would say that if I did have deadlines close together, there was at most maybe like a week or a couple of days. I remember in my first term of my master's, it started off very, you know, relaxed, you know, deadline here, deadline there. But then it ended with just like 4 deadlines within 2 weeks. So it's always about like having a planner, just thinking about, you know, that in typical fashion, you might have days when you don't want to do stuff, but actually plan out your days so you can actually utilize, your learning.
Time management, definitely key skill to learn throughout university. Very important. Don't let things pile up. It will pile up, and it will get you in the end. And it's not a nice experience. The stress that it just causes you. Like it's sometimes, oh well, it'll be fine. I can do it later. And then it all just piles up, and it just goes down from there. Be responsible when it comes to it. Just meet your deadlines. Just make sure you are working constantly. Not constantly, obviously give yourself a break, but you're here at university as a full-time student. So during your days, you should be putting some work into your course ultimately. And by doing that, you don't overwhelm yourself in the end. So it's very important for sure.
Yeah, and you know, with that point, it doesn't need to be that, you know, you do, I don't know, like 3 hours worth of work on, if you've got multiple coursework, like every day. I think I think that's the best thing. As soon as you've like got the assessment brief for coursework, and you know like what it is, you've got a topic, whatever, everything's done. just doing like small bits to start with is really good, because it means that, it's not, oh, it's a week due, I've got to like collate all this information, all of this stuff, and do it. No, actually, I can just like, I can say, oh, I found all the references I need, so I just don't need to look for references. It's just typing them all into a document. Or it could be like, oh, I was supposed to plot data. I've done all the plotting of the data and started the analysis. So now I can just work on this section. Because I think that that's one of the things that as students, we just have a tendency to just be like, you know what, I'm just going to leave everything last minute, or, oh, I really can't be bothered. When actually, if you just do these like small things, it just makes life so much easier.
It really does. It just doesn't overwhelm you at the end.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's so true. And I guess kind of, well, first off, thank you very much, Jay, for that great question. And that kind of leads to everyone's, our last segment of today's episode, which is all about our MCs of the month. And I guess you can probably guess from the amount of times we've talked about them, ResLife Ambassadors are our MCs of the month. They've already been described by Jay, as students who are hired by the residence team, or they're essentially there to help you those students who are living in halls with essentially living in halls, gaining that experience, all that knowledge that they've gained, being a gateway into support is very key. And I think I don't want to give, because we've already touched on it before, of touching on, who they are and the things that they do, because we've had a brief conversation on here, but some examples of the stuff that you might be interested in, of some of the social events that they do are movie nights, hot chocolate nights, cookery classes, again, what we said about budgeting, very important. They have money management and budgeting things, the idea of mental health awareness as students. How can we ensure that we keep our mental health with in a good level and in a good place? How can we also, it says here mindfulness, how can we be mindful not only of ourselves but to our fellow students, and things like alcohol awareness, how to, I guess, also keep safe on campus and things like that, which like Jay was saying, for students who maybe have never lived in the UK and this is their first time living here for almost basically a year, it can be very kind of crazy. So yeah, I think that's a great, like I said, we've spoken about the work that they do. I just will also include the link to their page so you can check them out on Instagram. But yeah, feel free to check out the Brunel's website, because there's loads of different pages on the stuff that they do. And yeah, they're essentially our MCs of the month. So yeah, we've now come to the end of the episode. I just want to say a huge thanks to Jay for being such a wonderful guest. Yeah, I guess before we let you go, just two things. One, you've mentioned your podcast that you're on, and I guess
I've mentioned my podcast.
So I guess two things. First off, could you let our audience know the name of the podcast? And I don't remember if we said it at the start, but if you even if we did, we can say it again. What essentially that podcast is about.
Sure thing. So the podcast is this big university-wide thing. We're collaborating with students, staff, and lecturers in that podcast. And our first episode that we released, I think it was last week, as of recording of this podcast currently, was about transitioning into university from abroad. And we get to hear the experiences from both staff and students. And we have a really good insight from someone who is a key worker in mental health here at university, and their experiences with it and what they would recommend in those senses, for sure. And it's called, I don't know if I mentioned it before, Let's Talk About It.
See, very, very catchy name, very important. And that's great. I'm sure our audience will definitely check that out. And lastly, there might be some students listening who are just like, wow, the ResLife Ambassadors sound great. And again, this is another two-parter. So I guess, one, where can students find information about the ResLife Ambassadors? I know we talked about the Instagram page, so if they can know the details for that, or any other pages that you guys have got. And secondly, as you mentioned, you can apply to be ResLife Ambassadors. So if a student's interested, they've heard this, and they're just like, wow, I want to be one, how do they go about doing that?
So they can find us on, it's mainly Instagram where we upload to, because ultimately it's where most students will be accessing, and it's just at brunel.ras. That's our Instagram. We also have other social media, which gets used sometimes as well. We have a TikTok, we have Twitch, where we do sometimes games nights with students. That's where we hosted the podcast last year with environmental sciences as well. I was on Twitch. Those are all, if you go to our Instagram, we have the little link tree, and it could just send you to all of our social media and important links. Where can they apply? How can they apply? So as of right now, vacancies are not open yet, but they will be opening very soon. And we're going to be looking for a brand new team for next year, and they are able to apply once it's up. We'll put some posts up nearer to the time, but whenever it's up, which should be soon, end of May, early June, you can do so through the online website of Job Shop is where you can find us. Good pay, good hours, just very friendly part-time work for students looking to make some good money and just be able to socialize in the end with other students. It's a very active and social job, but it's very worth it. It's one of the more important jobs here on campus, as you really get to build out connections with other students and help engagement within the community here at university.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I guess one thing before we let you go is, so to be a ResLife ambassador, I'm guessing students ideally have to either have lived on campus or be currently living on campus. Is that correct?
That is a misconception. They do not.
Oh, wow.
The only requirements they often put up, I am not sure if it will be the same for next year, but the only requirement is that you must have been at university for at least 1 year. So you at least know your bearings, you know your grounds, you have some experience with the university itself, because you will be asked a lot of these questions by students. So you have to have that experience to know how to answer them. And that's the only requirement, really. And of course, to be somewhat of a sociable person, you need to be comfortable with going out and talking to students. You need to be comfortable most times in front of the cameras. We do a lot of video productions. That's requirements. The only requirement effectively is the having been on a university for at least 1 year. The other two are they increase your odds and make your work here and your time here just much better, because you're really comfortable with what you're doing and you do it to the best ultimately.
Wow, that's really good. And yeah, literally I was surprised when you said they didn't have to be, because I always assumed that ResLife ambassadors had to be students who lived on campus. But yeah, you heard it here first. You don't have to be. So if you're listening and you're interested in to apply, that is great. And as usual, if you like this video, like, comment and subscribe is always appreciated, and click that notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. If you really like this episode and you want to contribute in some way, shape or form, then join our Patreon page so you can see more about the cool exclusive content we've got on Patreon. And in addition to that, make sure you check out these links below, especially the podcast. And again, if you're interested in applying, when the applications do open and it's posted, we will also include that in our stories and share that around. So feel free to keep an eye for that as well. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening or watching. Thanks for being an amazing audience. And we will see you next time when we pick up the mic. So that's bye from us here. Have a wonderful day. And yeah, see you all soon.